All right, everybody, get ready, because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of pitching.
Pitching anything.
Pitching anything.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
And we're going right to the source with Oren Klaff's book, Pitch Anything.
It's a good one.
This book is all about upping your persuasion game, closing more deals, and getting what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes for business deals, but honestly, it applies to everyday life, too.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about Klaff's approach is that it's not just surface-level sales tactics, you know?
Yeah.
He really digs into the neuroscience and psychology of decision-making.
Oh, wow.
And his whole strategy revolves around this thing he calls the croc brain.
Okay, now the croc brain, that sounds a little intense. What exactly are we talking about here?
So Klaff's main point is that every decision we make, even the ones we think are super logical, actually gets filtered through this primitive part of our brain first.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the control center for our survival instincts, kind of like the fight or flight response.
So before logic even kicks in, there's this ancient part of our brain making snap judgments.
Exactly. And a lot of pitches fail because they focus too much on data and logic.
Right.
You know, overloading that part of the brain that handles complex thinking, the neocortex.
Right.
And they completely ignore this emotional core, the croc brain.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
I've definitely been in situations where something felt off,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't really explain why.
Yeah.
Maybe that was my croc brain talking.
Could be, and if you're pitching something super complex and you lead with all this data and logic,
Right.
you might actually be scaring away your audience's croc brain.
So you're saying ditch the jargon and the bullet points.
Pretty much you need to connect on a more primal level.
Okay, so how do we talk to this croc brain?
It's actually simpler than you think.
Okay.
The croc brain wants clarity and simplicity.
Right.
It wants to know, is this a threat or is this valuable to me?
Okay.
So think direct, concise, and engaging.
Gotcha. So instead of overwhelming them with information, we need to get straight to the point.
Yeah.
Kind of like telling a good story.
You're on the right track there. Klaff talks a lot about the power of storytelling.
Okay.
Because stories connect directly with the croc brain's emotional core.
Interesting.
They bypass all that logical stuff and tap into something deeper.
So we need a good story, but before we even get there, I want to talk about framing.
Okay.
I've heard that term, but I'm not sure I fully understand what it means.
So framing is like this invisible force that shapes every interaction.
Oh, wow.
It sets the context and determines how information is perceived. But here's the thing. Different frames are always clashing and one ends up becoming dominant.
So it's like a subtle battle for control over how everyone sees the situation.
Exactly. Whoever controls the frame controls the narrative and ultimately the outcome.
Wow.
Klaff has this great example of a policeman's power frame. You know, when you get pulled over, what happens? Your heart starts racing, you get anxious, and you automatically defer to the officer's authority.
Totally. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you think you have a good argument.
Right.
Logic goes out the window, the policeman's frame dominates.
Exactly. And that's how powerful framing can be.
So how do we even begin to wrestle control of the frame, especially when there's this power dynamic at play?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Klaff has this method he calls the strong method.
Okay.
It's a 6-step process for taking control of the frame and delivering your message persuasively.
6 steps. All right, I'm ready. Let's hear them.
Okay, so the steps are set the frame, tell the story, reveal the intrigue, offer the prize, nail the hook point, and get the deal.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it is. So for our deep dive today, let's just focus on those first 2 steps, setting the frame and telling the story.
Okay, setting the frame and telling the story. I like it.
Yeah.
So let's start with setting the frame. What does that actually look like in practice?
Setting the frame is all about grabbing your audience's attention and making them open to what you have to say. It's about setting the context for your pitch and controlling how your ideas are perceived.
Yeah.
If you don't set the frame, you're basically letting the other person dictate the terms of the interaction.
Oh, that sounds dangerous, especially if you're pitching something important.
It can be, and that's where storytelling comes in.
Okay.
Remember, the croc brain loves a good story.
Why?
By creating a compelling narrative, you bypass all that logical processing and connect directly with the emotional core.
That's so interesting.
This is where Klaff's insights become really powerful. He talks about specific frames that are super effective in pitches, things like the power frame and the prize frame.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about these frames, especially this prize frame. It sounds like a game changer for anyone, not just business folks.
You're right, the prize frame is incredibly powerful and it applies to so many situations. But before we get there, how about we take a moment to think about what we've learned so far? You've already discovered the power of the croc brain and how important framing is.
No.
And now we're going to explore how to master specific frames to really captivate your audience and get them on board with your ideas.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing how these concepts can be applied to so many different areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about closing deals. It's about understanding the psychology of persuasion and communicating better in any situation.
Exactly. And we're just getting started.
I'm excited to hear more.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into these powerful frames and uncover more practical tactics from Clef's strong method. You'll be amazed how these simple concepts can totally shift the balance of power in any interaction.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm ready for more of those persuasion secrets from Pitch Anything.
All right, let's get to it.
Last time we left off talking about those fascinating frames,
Yeah.
specifically the power frame and the prize frame.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, how can those help us improve our communication?
Okay, so let's start with the power frame.
Yep.
It's all about understanding the power dynamics that are in every interaction.
Okay.
Like, think about it. There's usually someone who's seen as having more authority or influence.
Right.
It could be a CEO in a meeting or a professor leading a class.
Yeah.
Or even just that one friend who always seems to take charge of the conversation.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
It's like you can just feel it when someone has that strong presence.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
they command attention and respect.
Yeah.
It can be a little intimidating, to be honest.
Absolutely. And when you're trying to pitch an idea to someone with a strong power frame,
Yeah,
it can feel like you're fighting an uphill battle.
for sure.
But Clough has some interesting advice on how to shift that dynamic.
Okay, I'm listening.
He suggests using a mix of defiance and light humor.
Wait, defiance. That sounds kind of risky.
It's not about being aggressive or anything.
Right.
It's more about subtly asserting yourself and reminding the other person that you're not just passively accepting their authority.
So like standing my ground, but in a confident way, not confrontational.
Exactly. Clough gives this example of pitching to this high-level executive,
Okay.
and the guy was doodling during his presentation.
Oh, no.
So instead of ignoring it or getting flustered, you know what Clough did?
Right.
He took the pen away from the guy.
He did not.
Yeah, and he said something like, "Hey, I need that for my notes."
I would be way too scared to do something
Well,
like
it's all in the delivery. You have to do it playfully, you
Yeah.
know?
that. Okay.
Not like you're challenging him or anything.
Right.
But it worked. The executive was so surprised he actually stopped doodling and started paying attention.
Wow, I never would have thought of that.
Right.
It seems counterintuitive, but I can see how it would break the ice and shift the dynamic.
Exactly. It's all about those subtle cues.
Okay, so we've talked about the power frame.
Right.
Now let's dive into that prize frame you mentioned earlier.
Okay, this is one of my favorite parts.
Oh, good.
The prize frame is about shifting your mindset. Instead of feeling like you're the one seeking approval, you want to be the prize.
The prize.
Yeah, like you're the one to be won.
Mm-hmm.
It's about radiating confidence and value.
So the other person feels like they're the ones who need to impress me.
Exactly. You got it.
I like that.
It's about owning your expertise and your value, but not in an arrogant way.
Right.
Just being confident in what you bring to the table.
I see how this goes way beyond business pitches.
It does.
It's really about your attitude and how you present yourself.
Absolutely. Like, think about salary negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of feeling desperate for a raise, you go in acting like you're doing them a favor by offering your skills.
I like that approach.
Right.
Do you have a story from the book about how to embody this prize frame?
Yeah. Clough tells this story about meeting with this high-level decision maker
Okay.
who was known for always being late.
Oh, I hate that. Most people would just sit there and wait, you know,
Yeah.
anxious and feeling powerless.
Totally. I'd be checking my watch every 5 seconds. But Clough flipped the script. He just got up and left.
He left.
Yeah, he told the assistant, "Let me know when your boss is actually ready to meet."
Wow. I love that.
Right.
It's like he's saying, my time is valuable. I'm not going to waste it.
Exactly. And you know what?
What?
It worked. The decision maker apologized like crazy for being late, and he was way more engaged in the meeting.
That's amazing. Such a simple but powerful move.
It is. It shifts the power dynamic without being aggressive.
Right. But it's one thing to understand this mindset. You know, how do we actually make it part of who we are?
It starts with recognizing your own value.
Okay.
You have unique skills and experience, and you deserve respect.
Yeah.
It's also about being selective. Don't be afraid to walk away from opportunities that don't align with your worth.
I like that.
And remember, confidence doesn't equal arrogance.
Right.
It's about owning your strengths and letting your value speak for itself.
This is so empowering.
It is.
You're giving people permission to believe in themselves.
That's what I'm aiming for.
It's about recognizing that you have something valuable to offer and communicating that value to others.
Exactly. And we've only scratched the surface here. Remember, we've only covered 2 steps of Claff's strong method.
Right.
There's so much more to explore, like the reveal the intrigue step.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
It's all about sparking your audience's curiosity and keeping them engaged.
So how do you create that sense of mystery without being too vague?
It's a balancing act.
Okay.
It's not about hiding information, but strategically revealing details. Think of it like a movie trailer, you know?
Okay.
They give you just enough to get you interested, but they don't spoil the whole plot.
Right.
You're left wanting more.
I get it. So this intrigue step makes your pitch more engaging and memorable.
Exactly. It taps into that human desire to solve puzzles and uncover secrets.
I love how everything connects.
Yeah.
You set the frame, tell a compelling story, and then sprinkle in some intrigue to keep them hooked.
It's like building a persuasive masterpiece.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not about tricks or manipulation.
No.
It's about understanding communication and using that knowledge to connect with people on a deeper level.
That's what it's all about.
I'm excited to start putting these ideas into practice.
Me too.
But let's bring it back to our listeners for a second.
Okay.
How can they start using these principles in their own lives?
The biggest takeaway for me is to pay attention to the frames that are at play in your conversations. Who's setting the tone, whose perspective is dominating.
Oh, interesting.
Once you become aware of these dynamics, you can start consciously shifting the frame to get a better outcome.
That's so important. It's like becoming aware of this invisible force field.
Yeah.
And now we have the tools to actually see it and even manipulate it.
That's a great way to think about it.
And this isn't just for business or negotiations, right?
No, not at all. You can use this in everyday conversations.
Yeah.
Like convincing your partner to try a new restaurant or advocating for something you care about.
This is so empowering.
Right. It's about taking control of your communication and making your voice heard.
I love it. And remember, we've only scratched the surface here.
Yeah, we still have a few more steps of the strong method to explore.
Right.
But even with what we've covered, you can already see how powerful these concepts are.
For sure. This has been so insightful.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a lot more confident about handling those tough conversations.
It's great to hear.
Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll unlock even more secrets from Pitch Anything and give you the tools to become a truly persuasive communicator. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Pitch Anything.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've uncovered some serious persuasive power with the croc brain and those keyframes.
Yeah, and the cool thing is,
Yeah,
even mastering those first few steps can really change how you communicate.
totally. It's like a whole new perspective on communication. I'm finding myself noticing those subtle power dynamics in frames everywhere.
That's exactly it. It's all about awareness.
Right.
And once you start seeing those invisible forces, you can actually shape them.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for human interaction.
I like that.
But okay, before we get carried away, let's get back to the strong method.
Right.
We've covered setting the frame, telling the story, and even touched on revealing intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
What about the rest of steps? Offer the prize, nail the hook point, and get the deal.
Those are important ones, but remember, our goal here is to give you actionable insights that you can use right away.
Yeah.
And you're already seeing how powerful these concepts are, even without mastering the whole method.
True. But for our listeners who are curious, can you give us a quick overview of what those remaining steps are all about?
Sure. So Offer the Prize is about presenting your idea as something really desirable, something people will want to be a part of.
So it's not just about stating your idea, but positioning it as something valuable and exclusive.
Exactly. Something people would be lucky to get their hands on.
I get it. And then nail the hook point.
That's where you really drive home the value proposition. You grab their attention and make them understand why this is important for them.
Okay, and then get the deal. Is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's about closing the deal, getting that yes, whether it's for a business proposal or getting your kids to eat their veggies.
I see, but each step builds on the one before it.
Exactly. You need that strong foundation from the first 3 steps to really make those final steps work.
This is all starting to click. It's a strategic process, but it's also about being authentic and connecting with people on a real level.
That's what it's all about. Claff's approach isn't about manipulating people.
Right.
It's about understanding how we make decisions and using that knowledge to communicate better.
Right.
It's about building trust and rapport and getting people genuinely excited about your ideas.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm already feeling more confident about handling those tough conversations.
I'm glad to hear that.
But for our listeners out there, what's the one thing they should take away from all of this?
You know, If I had to pick just one thing, it would be to be aware of the frames that are shaping your interactions.
Okay.
They're everywhere, from news headlines to the power dynamics in a meeting. Frames influence how we see things and how we make decisions.
Wow, that's so true. Once you start seeing these frames, it's like a whole new world.
Exactly. And once you're aware of them, you can start asking yourself some questions.
Like what?
Whose frame is this? Is it helping me or hurting me? And how can I shift the frame to get a better result?
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's like taking control of the story, not just in pitches or negotiations, but in life in general.
That's exactly it.
I love that. This has been such an amazing deep dive. I'm feeling inspired to pay more attention to these frames and start using these techniques to become a better communicator.
That's awesome.
Any last words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap things up?
Yeah, here's something to think about. What hidden frames might be influencing your everyday conversations and decisions? Take some time to reflect on that. You might be surprised by what you find.
That's a great point. And remember, folks, this is just the beginning.
Yeah,
There's always more to learn and explore when it comes to communication.
absolutely. Keep learning.
This has been a fantastic deep dive into Pitch Anything.
It really has.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those croc brains engaged.
And keep pitching anything.